No, I will tell you, old people like me sit around and wonder what would happen if four really incredible debaters like this all got together in one debate. This is a really special thing, and it also takes a whole lot of work and prep on top of everything else that's also going on by these four folks. They were still judging rounds, they were still working on files, they were still doing everything else. So please, just one more huge round of applause for them before we get started.
It's super important that you're very quiet, like during speeches and just throughout the entire debate because of like projection, volume, and stuff. And like we're gonna try to be like as loud as possible, but our voices can only carry so much, especially since some of us are still sick. So please, please be quiet and be mindful so other people can hear.
There's also a recording happening, so anything you say may get on the recording, so you may not want that.
Or that too. Like I said, you'll get these docs after the debate. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a timer?
Yeah, Ronick.
I'll take 1 and 2.
Don't throw it. You're about to go.
Yeah, please don't throw your timers.
And just and then a second timer.
I got it.
Okay.
It's already done. It's already here. All right.
Silence. Children. Snowden leaks revealed a secret and illegal agreement between the NSA and the Israeli Significant Intelligence National Unit, which the U.S. owed Israel unfiltered access to metadata regarding U.S. persons, while Israel and anti-Palestinian violence is not a new phenomenon. NSA ISNU collaboration changed its character. Modern Israeli militarism is a direct result of this relationship, which caused the 2014 Gaza invasion and subsequent massacres. It would have been impossible without foreign military sales. Green Wall 14. U.S. government allowed Israel providing most of surveillance technology, top secret documents sent by the U.S. and nailed the assault on Gaza and seizing increased surveillance too. And it's including data stored Palestinians having non-torable in the U.S. and timers on time to see process repeats U.S. peace deals with weapons and the guns and aggression and really be possible without the U.S. The NSA maintains a more relationship with the NSNU has been the catalyst of our relations with the U.S. and Israel. The Israeli gains access to advanced technology via foreign military sales, and Israeli surveillance works to capture Palestinian activism through data and temporal calculations. Israeli sovereignty depends not on the production of Palestinian death, but genocidal maiming, which transforms resistance itself into a mere target of surveillance. Poir 15. Collateral damage by feeling invincible will not tell the time justification right to maim. Make die crimes of the mandate of Israeli state plus to become a refractory and children praise when they're dead with a line with telling people rather than resisting or enduring prison house and tyranny, maiming and suffering repeating the Israeli military states of rising increased legitimate Palestinians rendered on human part of creating economies and control. Trauma is overshadowed and built into law policies that rename suffering colonial terminology, target youth out for death, for injuries and other aspects, vital tactics, these render impotent future resistance. Resistance can be empty, targeted computational metrics, possibly become the testing ground for Israeli interference, complete airspace, and ground control, anti-dice, permanent fits, anti-dice, permanent fits, not being civilized Palestine, not to render visible, but to understand intensification, biological control, are continuous across geopolitical spaces, a cyber horizon, epistemological movement that opens up connective tissue between regimes of power, non-production, and solidarity for liberation, current condition, use academy for the possibility genuine debate about Palestine. The goal is not to reform instrumentalists use remote nor to mobilize Palestine movement or to foreground Eurocentric theorization, but to purpose it's to labor in the service of a free Palestine. And this effect also proves that we cannot separate the foreign and domestic. U.S.-Israel collaboration over anti-Palestinian surveillance has fundamentally transformed how imperial violence is carried out in the U.S. The act follows a long tradition of queer, trans, women of color activism and making these connections explicit. Neighbor 16. Liberation movement to be watched by the elites of African Palestine versus centralized Western imperialism connecting all forms of culture, black power, who want to transform the U.S. and abroad to interconnected black power, not saying about intervention contests and racial testifying profession and movements abroad. Black Southern Palestine and continue to resonate with the activist circles, providing foundation for the resurgence of such solidarity in the U.S. and Israel made connections to urban police departments and murder black folks with trained Israeli law enforcement. The police can civil assault that work with the communities, military contractors, grain acts, broader markets. The part of the militarization involved training U.S. police and Israel colonization makes use anti-black racist police and Ferguson as representing Israel. The local police force with the Israeli defense is both black protection against Palestinian war, both massive conservation of black people, identity security use voices of Zionism and appropriating black struggle to repress Palestinian resistance. The Zionist institution understood me between what increase by the right for another and could consider commands and stopping prison basal and passing surveillance law for directly against Palestinian solidarity. Palestine mission reality that produced it. Ferguson rising housing policy produced segregation research of black and Palestinian solidarity housing visual restructuring global economy providing new lines of African Americans to non-existent to locations, transnational structures, and higher requirement thoughts based on distinction and activism between hope and broad use until the extension of violence. Black communities may not experience military violence in exactly the same ways how people Palestine blames imperial military violence. All the same structures of militarism, white supremacy constitute a common imperial project from the color queer code activists have been at the forefront of Multiple Joint Struggles and Women's Solidarity Association Dialogue, the SWC Insights Anti-War Campaign, the recent Black Lives Matter struggle against the Lula, Put Ron Spencer, Intersection Women's Analysis, Palestine, Black Liberation. There remains so much work ahead, providing solidarity and continuing to find out the fine balance between power and balance as well. Expanding joint struggles, thus a plan. The United States federal government should eliminate foreign military seals and surveillance technologies to the state of Israel, approved under the Memorandum of Understanding between the National Security Agency and Israeli Significant Intelligence National Unit. Frame it. The problem isn't just the surveillance, but the governing structure enabling it. The MOU exemplifies a paradigm of disaggregated sovereignty in which the absence of statutory constraints on the president enables the global outsourcing of enforcement of existing regulations to the ISMU. We must trace the global networks of networks that constitute transnational surveillance assemblages and recognize the qualitative distinctions between domestic and international regimes of enforcement. Mandating a government when you actually enjoys high relation to NSA, increasing the catalyst for relationship and terror directing and planning, executive to executive institutional structure, NSA, ISMU agents and oppressing its compliance with rights and individual privacy based across further creative assembly and agreement in place both in domestic legal system and international law networks, environment, produces disaggregated sovereignty, cross border bureaucracy, joint policy, with either informal coordination, executive agency, range of pure independent government interests and habits only through district through action and important aspect of training, technical expertise, and use outside network oversight. And these are components enforcing networks, sovereignty, about networks and networks, the law surveillance, expose the dark side, disaggregated sovereignty, strategies, plan issue, legal applications, the NSA hours for surveillance attacks to others in agenda generate, broaden like official when important to think about separation of power, judicial review, the use of law against law, transforms the need for transparency, has emerged under international partners who can practice shaping political participation in a state global power structure, which U.S. is more cloudly question relative to my surveillance, to my herald right breakdown, domestic checks and balances we need, and critique conceptualizing harms of the world, national security at the heart of sovereign prerogative, and powers the executive and disempowers what are the instruments which can ensure accountability of people exposed to subjugation by transnational networks, still emerging multiplayer world, and maybe more feasible than ever. And debating about the legal craftwork of global surveillance networks matters. The process is shrouded in secrecy precisely to prevent debate. Analyzing leaked documents and their legal implications is an important part of understanding and challenging disaggregated sovereignty. Mandating laws used against law sometimes in opportunities to participate in mass surveillance and respectively for rules such as the result legal craftwork, the objective of the variety comprehensive companies such as how it's not possible, but I bet a lot of leaks and rights and necessarily partial picture, scholars think the headings of material trees and now it's assemblies at least off instruments that are being consequential with the burden deep in bureaucracy, privacy agreements, sovereign domestic political debate, legal documentation, violence, and activity, legal iceberg, corporation, national security sphere, scholars, analyze and watch actors, part of cooperative security apparatus left on examining what international domestic law amalgamated to create assemblages with no accountability, the strategy to undo legal limitations of cooperation and mass surveillance, reproduce disaggregated sovereignty, executive agencies, and cyberspace and social media are potentially revolutionary tools for Palestinian activists, but metadata gives Israel the necessary tools to crack down. Advocating for a new legal architecture that restricts NSA surveillance allows activist voices to pose genuine challenges to power. Both the plan and the discussion around it matters. We must combine scholarly activism and critical alliances through reflexive, reciprocal dialogue. Huck and best in 18. Social media content great for those who power lines of racial democrats, especially NSA's one obvious opponent to activism is a tactic that counter these strategies has no institutionalized location. The tactic have a divided place depends on time activism does not produce institutional discourse. Activism, the action in manner of inserting oneself in portable personalities that hopes to demand transformation, take Palestinian youth, organizing anti-colonial movements, grassroots accounts of early mainstream media, narrative power, social media, critical grassroots, power, public relations, school activists bypass these. We with evidence of atrocity, there's no legal architecture that can hold the Israel responsible despite surveillance, and it is unlikely that activists will abandon social media. Social media will tools Palestinians are not subject to occupation, provides an excellent way to disseminate information or planned westfall activism, but materially supports the dominant modes of crucial alternative strategies planned in that space. If there's posturing persons who want to require practical conversations, there's no tool to actual interlocutors who are dismantle every utterance, no attention to form new assemblages, securities, and breaks of organizations rather than get tested through practice and critical branches of accountability, requires taking ourselves into a mutually shared position while continuing to explore and construct pathways with industrial activism, creating principles of sandwich, create resistance grounds for activism to set a connection broader grassroots movement is able to stop material processes and have sort of mass surveillance and tool control, more effectively target threats to authority, the efforts of citizens of Brazil and Marcos Civil, recognizing critical role informed citizens protecting government, and integral creating legal architecture. The NSA is tapping into companies' post-years challenge to activists working to combat global crisis, police brutality, environmental degradation, economic injustice. Cyberspace is more accessible than electoral policy, protected from surveillance fundamentals, a reorganization of the relationship between power and the public, based with state surveillance, we're tasked with sketching out constructing legal architecture that insulates school activists.
Yeah, sorry. Got that a little bit quicker than I would they can hear me, that's fine.
Yeah, they can.
Silence. Alright, good wherever you are.
Yeah. So let's begin with what the app does.
Yep.
A little confused by what the app reduces in the context of arms sales.
Will we eliminate FMS of surveillance technologies to the state of Israel?
Sure. So what does that mean in the context of domestic surveillance in Israel to Palestinians?
Well, our argument is that it's about metadata, of like U.S. persons as well as those abroad.
Sure.
If that
So I
answers
guess
your
the
question.
transference of that information post the plan, how does that resolve militarily via arms the violence that Israel places on to like domestic issues for Palestine?
I think if I understand that correctly, we've read a lot of hyper-specific evidence about surveillance
I
technologies.
don't think it's that hyper specific. It's
Okay,
specific to
well,
like
I think it is.
surveillance, but in terms of like responding to the arms portion that is weaponized against everyday like Palestinians, that part's a little light.
Well, we think surveillance is the crucial internal link to those other forms of arms like violence, and we have
How?
read
What is
evidence
the
that
one?
substantiates
You
that.
have evidence. What's the one?
Yeah, so our evidence says that surveillance becomes a tool that sort of like magnifies all those other technologies, and even
What
if
is it?
we don't,
Sure. Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, and even if you say that we don't solve every single aspect of like armed violence against Palestinians, I don't know why that means the plan isn't a worthwhile endeavor.
What part do you read in the 1AC that speaks to the capacity of Israel's own internal surveillance technology?
The Greenwald piece of evidence.
What part of that Greenwald evidence do you think speaks to that?
The beginning half, you're right, we haven't highlighted all of it, but it definitely says that the NSA has been a primary enabler of Israel's own development of their domestic surveillance industry. Particularly, they worked closely with the NSA in order to develop
I
cyber
get that there
weapons
is
to
a
scan for
correlation.
social
I'm
media.
asking a dependency question. Why is the NSA-Israel strategic relationship in the context of surveillance a necessity?
Because our argument is that a lot of their surveillance technologies and the way that they use what we give them, again, would not be effective unless they had all of the data and all the technologies that we sell to them.
So that's fine. Let's ask the next question on Quar and neighbor combo.
Yes.
Quote says, let me get to that quote. Ooh, computer. Right. So, Palestinian children in Gaza are exposed to more violence in their lifetime than any other people, any other children, anywhere in the world. You then, on the neighbor evidence, say that Black or African Americans and Palestinians do not exist in opposite or like different temporal locations. How do we reconcile that internal contradiction?
I'm not sure why that's an internal contradiction.
I mean,
think
it's
the
not like
evidence
this.
the evidence is comparing a lot of different factors and like, variances
Yeah, so that's
between
not
the
a
violence
response.
that Palestinian kids like literally have to face. I'm not sure why that's in tension with the other
I mean,
evidence
it's a
because
really
it's not
analogy.
positioning it
Cool.
against
Huck and Best. Huck and Best, last thing, important. Very small font says that as social media means Black Lives Matter is an edible material from mimesis that is borrowing the original and retouching to further objectives. Why is that kind of mimetic way in which Black women, and I'll take prep for this if you'll respond to the question.
We'll respond with that. That's fine.
I mean, no, I don't steal prep. But, I mean, since we have this time to ask, to finish it, right? We therefore witness a proliferation of hashtag lives matter. In the rival rivers, canals, and gutters of social media, all lives matter, migrant lives matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In some cases, mimicry went far beyond itself to consume hashtag Black Lives Matter. Garza recounts how organizers for Our Lives Matter even requested Black Lives to submit materials for a choreographic exhibit. One of them noticed for this event completely erased the origins of their work. Why is scholasticism then good?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the first part of your question.
So
So
it
it's-
requires
like-
a mimetic way in which
wait.
Black women's labor is stolen. And then when Black women try to occupy that, they are pushed away.
Yeah.
Why is your activism good?
One, we don't think the 1AC's activism is scholactivism. Rather, our argument is scholactivists exist in Palestine that are using these to actively resist the control
Resolve
of
that tension,
Israeli
please. The app is not scholastic,
yeah.
it's not scholasticism, but you defend scholactivist movements.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to add a second line too before you
Sure.
answer that question. Second, our argument isn't that this is the perfect form of activism, but that it's the ways that Palestinians have called upon challenging Israel.
So darn Black women are coded as fungible to mobilize your politics. That's
Black women
a necessary
also
thing.
use the movement of
Oops.
Palestine to actively forward their own projects, much
So,
like
like,
Angela
domestic
Davis has
surveillance,
done
all that
and
stuff
multiple
done.
different things. The Audre Lorde Project actively used it. Donna Austin, a member of the Muslim
Which have been
anti-racist
circumvented by the
collaboration, actively
hashtag. So
worked.
I'm wondering how you
One
defend
hashtag got
that mimicry
circumvented is
good.
not the
They're
same
not
thing,
respon-
that these things are not important to talk about. The threshold of the app
Important
isn't
to talk
are we
about is the
perfect for
way in which
Black
they're talked
women,
about.
but do we
Answer
help
that question,
Palestinians
Caitlin.
who have been held in an open air prison in Gaza?
What was the
Not a
last
response.
question?
That's cool.
That'll be too often case.
I just feel like I started.
Yeah, it's not like a...
Cause it's so long.
Marquise, do you appreciate that angle? Does it look good? Do you think you look good? Yeah, Dari, you're not even.
No, I am if I do this.
Well, Jasmine.
No, it's the same one I sent. Or should I send it again?
I don't know. Like, I just don't know where it's changing.
Did you send it to the team?
Yeah, I had sent it. Yes, it's the same one, but I'll send it again.
It's just it hasn't.
Oh, okay. Should be sent. Yep. Everybody ready? Blackness resides at the level of absolute dereliction. The 1AC highlights black and Palestinian solidarity and ignores the ways in which solidarity is coherent through a fundamental disavowal, gratuitous nature, anti-black violence, and the obliterative nature of this reality. Wilderson in 15, trying to console a Palestinian friend whose cousin has blown himself up while making a bomb in the West Bank. He was grieving that it was really shameful and humiliating way Israel men ran their hands over your body. Then he said the deepest sense of humiliation was felt when the Israel soldier was an Ethiopian Jew. MI placed in the collective unconscious of Arabs was the same location of general dishonor that I occupy in the collective unconscious of white America, and the coalition of politics of 1AC is rooted in a violent vampiricism of black energy cohere, anti-colonial struggles at the expense of a radical encounter with the phenomenon of social death. This is not a general claim, but specific to the way that affirmative pauses blackness the Palestinian struggle. Wilderson in 15 is right now pro-Palestinian. People are saying, Ferguson, an example of what is happening in Palestine. Y'all are getting what we're getting. That's bullshit. First, there's no time period in which black police and slave domination has ever ended. Second, the Arab and Jews are as much part of the black slave trade as the creation of blackness and social death as anyone else. And voting affirmative justifies the American imperial project, licensing your overall strategy of benevolence and genocide. Bell in 15. Ooh, it's been a long time. American self-understanding has been brutally efficient in producing innocent domination. Death dealing, pursued as a matter of public policy, has been cloaked repeatedly in sacralizing aura of rhetorical innocence. American domination, especially where violently pursued, is innocent. The removal of Native Americans, enslavement of Africans, the conquest of Spanish South and North America, the revolution of the English, the dawn of U.S. empire in the Philippines, and the belated entry into World War I and the good war against the Axis powers of World War II, the Cold War against the Soviet Union and communists, China via proxies of Korea and Vietnam, and the military adventures in Iraq twice and Afghanistan were all shouldered in sacralizing discourse of sacrifice. Such violence, no matter how sadistic, preemptive, and domination-driven, has been cloaked. Action, hence, as innocent. A religion has been pressed into a service of a key component in the ongoing rationalization of violence in the same evolutionary progress. And will still continue. Murder, war, torture, and destruction, the sacrifice of some to preserve others. There are themes which American history ought rightly to begin. And next, the alternatives of program complete disorder. This is a priority consideration. But for any of their offense, Wilderson 07 to Black America are off the map with respect to cartography, the charts, civil society, semiotics, places us in a structurally impossible position, one that is outside the articulation of hegemony. No other body functions at the level of the imaginary, symbolic, and the real. So completely to the repository of complete disorder. Black society, absolute dereliction, a map of gratuitous violence through which civil society is possible. Blackness society, absolute dereliction, symbolic blackness is American generates no categories for chromosomes of history, no data as categories of sovereignty, the experience without analog, a past without heritage. Black society, absolute dereliction, imaginary. For whoever says rape says black, or whoever says prison says black, whoever says AIDS says black. The Negro is a photogenic object, a past without a heritage, a map of gratuitous violence, and a program of complete disorder. Next is collective catharsis, and when they see reduces the figure of black women to the maternal who must pathologically shoulder the burdens of movements through our labor, while also being disavowed. William in 16. If we read Caroline's resolution through the attributes, figures, posits, we should perceive her as displacing her grief toward an already failed mission. Viewed in this way, her choices allow her to circumvent her responsibilities to the lives that remain, leaving them alone in despair of straits of grief and mourning. Fundamentally to the strong black mother in mourning is her ability to contain the inexpressible wildness of grief, so that she can carry her family out of trauma, central to both figurations in their in-lived presence, that being respectfully tied to the griefs and family, ensures positive change for others. And the 1AC does not have space for black women. Their grand narrative of Palestinian restoration does nothing to deal with the structural position in which black women are made functional with the melodrama of the 1AC Harmony 16, where does the impossible domestic fit within the general strike, or is it a subject still waiting her verb, strategies of endurance and substance do not yield easily to the grand narratives of revolution, revolutionary longing, impose black female flesh by making it a placeholder for freedom. Those of us who have been touched by the mother need to acknowledge that the ability to provide care, food, and refuge often has placed her in great jeopardy. Her freedom struggle remains opaque, unsustainable. Her role has been fixed. Her role as a provider of care, the very mode of her exploitation and different use by the world. This has been produced through a violent structure of slavery, anti-black racism, virulent sexism, and disposability. These labors cannot be assimilated into a template or a grid of the black worker, but instead nourish the latent text of the future. They enable those who have never meant to survive, that to sometimes just do that. This care is at the black heart of our social poesis of making and our relation, and the heuristic of protest and aggregated sovereignty is nothing more than anti-black femphobia, king, no date. I attended a protest march. My justification for attendance was more powerful than the efforts of isolated communities of color. In that moment, I had just given into white supremacist systems of domination. This structure of white supremacy demanded submission by professing to be both the norm and the alternative. We keep on speaking, however. Our attempts to define and adhere to our own agenda did nothing. We did not create self-determining space that would allow the particular analysis of war and white supremacy. We were not even able to make white folks aware of their own racism as the protest itself. We became a pawn, a mere prop, one of those larger-than-life puppets. I could use them patting themselves on the back for the good work they have reached out to people of color, educate us or make us feel welcome to join them. Our presence only legitimized the work of whites, which is to say, in the positions of power and to control the discourse, action, and discretion of the called progressive politics. And the alternative is to refuse the usage of black women's energy and trauma while avowing their structural position as a necessary starting point to any politics. Now, in case Trump would exploit any loophole and circumvent the plan Ward and 524. The U.S. may use a loophole. Trump circumvents authority by declaring an emergency. George Bush used this provision in 2006 to send precise guided weapons to Israel during the Israel and Hezbollah July war. And next, the politics method of one provides a genocidal cover for terrorism of both the U.S. and Israel. Greenwald in 18. I think there's just time to acknowledge and accept the reality of what Israel is. Israel is an apartheid rogue terrorist state. All the political forces to the right, they don't believe in Palestinian state. They want to dominate the land forever. They believe they are religiously entitled to it, using whatever war crimes and slaughter and murder that they need to in order to suppress and intimidate the population. Doesn't the West need to stop Israel, stop arming it, stop sending it money and providing diplomatic cover? Look what Western discourse says should what Palestinians are permitted to do. If Palestinians kill troops, Israeli troops occupying their land, which every country in the world would claim the right to do so. If there were Russian troops in the U.S., it would be cheered if people killed them. But when Palestinians kill military soldiers occupying their land, they're called terrorists. The only Western discourse talks Palestinians they are permitted to do is to meekly acquiesce and submit to and obey the dictates of the Israel government. Affirmative performance makes the violence of Palestine and black struggle fungible along the risk associated with solidarity work. Independent reason to vote negative for Medina 18. Academic freedom is a fantasy, one that masks a lot of violence. Academic freedom debate deflects and shuts down discussions and details the mechanism of Israel's occupation. Beyond the challenge of claiming a space for Palestine solidarity in the United States are difficulties of elaborating on the material networks that, for example, connect Israel's security from El Bit to the Mexican-U.S. border in Arizona. What should they discuss if they allow debate on Israel colonization, market colonization, and have zero inherency? Israel surveillance capacity matches, if not surpasses, U.S. capabilities. Canaan 16 technology is one of the main sectors of the Israel's industry. Unit 8200 cyber sector has become an integral aspect of the Israel's economy, exporting $4 billion worth of products and services in 2014. When drafted into the army, Israel's smartest users are steered toward intelligence units, are taught how to spy, hack, and create offensive cyber weapons. Unit 8200 is a feeder school to private surveillance industry, and Israel is a self-proclaimed startup nation. The products those intelligence veterans create are sold to governments around the world to spy on people. The group identified 27 surveillance companies, the highest number per capita of any country, and social media.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
that's time.
Oh, okay.
Word.
You're good. Getting into it. All right.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. Cool. All right. I want to start on pessimism. So you've read a couple of Wilderson cards about like his experience with a couple like Palestinians that he met. Why do these few anecdotal lines mean that all Black Palestinian alliances are anti-Black?
So, I mean, Frank is one engaged in transnational liberation work in the context of the ANC, the MK, etc. He has experience beyond that isolated anecdote. He just used it as a personal, embodied perspective on how anti-blackness operates at the level of absolute dereliction, at the level of the unconscious. It's very important to look at that evidence in terms of the grief that the insurgent experienced through a loss of the friend. That's when the slippage happened, when the Negro phobogenesis reared its ugly head. It was a moment of solidarity that was forbidden by the psychic unconscious of Palestinians.
My next question then is, under either advocacy then, is Black Palestinian solidarity possible? And if so, what would that look like?
Our Wilderson 07 evidence is really great on that question. It's a theorization of revolutionary movements. Obviously, I think it would be silly to say movements in the abstract will just be fundamentally bad.
I agree.
But Frank makes a very key argument that there is a particular discourse surrounding movements that is rooted in a parasitic liberalism and movements that have a violent orientation.
Is there an example of one that would be good?
Again, we talked about the ANC a minute ago, the resistance to South African apartheid, the BLA, the Black Panther Party, etc. Are all examples of insurgency because violence was an option. We think the way you talk about movements is a selective cherry picking of movements.
Let's see. I'm sorry, I just need to move on. On Catharsis, is it a pick? If so, what does it pick out of?
Yeah, it's a pick.
All right, what does it pick out of?
It picks out of the forced kind of exhaustive labor that you call on Black women to produce the kind of a medical exchange of the 1AC.
Which parts then would the pick include and pass, I guess?
If it's a question of movements exist in the status quo now, we think that either one, that's a presumption ballot, that's the kind of use of the affirmative to kind of mobilize Black women to produce the kind of cathartic moment of care is bad. So if it's
does it pass the point?
How about this? The AF is so small that even if you win, the AF does a thing. That small thing is better in the context of Black women engaging in the activism.
Yeah, I just want to know if the pick would then pass the plan, hypothetically.
Sure, if you're asking as a result in the world of the affirmative, probably not better if it's coming from Black women
that's fine.
engaging in the scholarship of the plan.
Your king evidence about movements being bad, in the underlying portion, it's talking about this is all in the context of white-led movements, like in Philly. So I guess where does this card indict non-white-led movements?
Okay, so then what is the Huck and a few things. One, Huck and Best would definitely indicate the ways in which white movements very much so circumvent the plan. So
I'm asking about non-white.
What is a non-white movement?
We've listed a bunch of movements, and the 2AC is also going to list a bunch of movements that are all led by
the 2AC
women of
evidence
color,
is also going to talk
people.
about the ways in which white people should be empathetic towards good hair and Black bad hair. So if you want to get into we read cards. We can get to warrants.
Bro.
No.
Are you talking about anything, Brian, before?
Yeah, do you want to do... Hi, stream.
Hi, stream.
The order is going to be the AF, Catharsis, Wilderson. I'm going to answer the thing. That's just case. I collapsed it into one page because I'm a 2. I also did put it. I'm always ready to affirm resolutions.
Which resolution?
All resolutions. I'm never not ready. All right, now that we've had a discussion about whether we're ready, are you all ready? All right. Vote act to end sales of surveillance technology via FMS, which is the enabling factor of all U.S.-Israeli surveillance operations which target Palestinians based on a securitized and racialized lens. You should understand racialized Palestinianization as a settler process whereby flesh is marked as deviant, is surveyed and eliminated. It proves either the Ks are insufficient or in the permits necessary to solve, or there's no reason that the AF's research project is bad. Now, you should view all of our impacts through the lens of genocidal maiming. It's where Palestinians Palestinians are killed but kept in open-air prisons as a self-created security threat to justify the perpetual war machine both in the U.S. and Israel. Palestine is a generative site of colonialism for all of the West and has been identified as such by many activist groups all over the world. Any frame that's an opportunity cost. This means we cannot ameliorate any of the violence that is currently happening en masse, which means that the app is a diss to any of the alternatives that rejected. Now, social media is inevitably used by school activists, both black and Palestinian, means that they can't win unique offense on it, which is the huck and best evidence, but removing the crucial barrier of surveillance technology is necessary for Palestinians to resist the violence that is done to them on an everyday basis in the Gaza Strip, which only the plan is able to solve. The active jamming of the what I see by having a discussion over the leaked documents about what Snowden is discussing is necessary in order to actively work through the networks of disaggregated sovereignty that allows this violence to continue. That will be more on the framing page of the K, but you should view that as a lens for why the app is a good idea. Now, the first argument is circumvention. First, durable fiat. The question of the resolution is should not, would means we get to say that the app exists on the bus. Second, it doesn't take out the app. The threshold of our impact is not does the app stop all Israeli U.S. surveillance against Palestinians, but does the app stop the transfer of technologies under the Memorandum of Understanding. Trump calling an emergency is the push of this special relationship out of secrecy that is necessary to bring it to the forefront of the American mindset. Third is we end the transfer of those technologies. All this evidence says is that Trump has the ability to alter language of bills. If that bill does not apply anymore, then he can't do it. The Greenwald piece of evidence, it votes af his location as Israel as a genocidal actor is what we do. We don't think ending surveillance stops Zionist beliefs, but acts as an anti-Zionist hermeneutic that prevents the silencing of dissent against the regime, which is actively necessary to undermine Israel's foundation as a settler nation. The next piece of evidence, the Purim evidence. What is the link to the app? Our argument is that Palestinian activists should have been given a voice in academic spaces, but they are actively being shut down by cyber weapons spread and created by the relationship between the NSA and Israel. The app is crucial for that, removing that barrier. Their last argument is this Kane piece of evidence, and it doesn't take out the app. U.S. data sharing is the primary enabler of aggression by Israel because they know that they have the support of the United States, and it concludes that the NSA partnership is the foundation for that surveillance. Canaan 16D and Unit 8200 and the NSA developed the cyber weapons. The U.S. leads a number of surveillance companies. The list doesn't include companies like Boeing. The American Defense Contractors help collect and forward the information to the NSA. The collective Catharsis K first is framework. They have to prove the fiat and implementation of the app is a bad idea. Any other framework lets the negative pick and choose the standard for victory, which will always be self-serving. Basic condition for an app victory, shifting an impossible clash is a better way to translate any of their framework beliefs because debate between well-prepared opponents does more to change people's opinion than a one-sided lecture. Now, there's also no unique link to the app. We don't create new movements. The app isn't important to remove the barrier of NSA both metadata collection and the dissemination of surveillance technologies that allows groups to disseminate information, plan, whatever. We are a legal architecture that holds the Israeli state responsible for cracking down on those organizations and removes the support that enables them to conduct surveillance in the first place. Remember, social media is inevitable. That proves all of their links inevitable. The threshold for winning this case is not did the neg diagnose a different way of theorization of how Palestinian violence or resistance should operate, but what did the app do that is wrong? Now, there's a jamming dissent to their interpretation. Extend the man evidence. Debating about the legal craft versus the global surveillance networks is vital. Voting app is a process of jamming that affirms our discussion around secret confidential memorandums of understanding between Western governments that prove that they want to stifle debate now, which proves why our framework for resistance is more effective for contemporary iterations of colonialism. Disaggregated sovereignty has multiple nodes that create violence in distinct forms around the globe, but have the same technologies of violence, like the same tear gas canisters used both by hyper-militarized police in Gaza and Ferguson, which proves that we have to put forward an effective program of resistance. This doesn't mean that we are a vanguard, but it also proves that we're not mutually exclusive with the alt, and the neg must rejoin the plan by proving there's unique opportunity costs. Otherwise, it stunts all potential to realize black liberation. Splinski and 16, respecting diverse short-term goals, long-term objectives, not necessarily mean one would agree abolition of structures rather than moves of work in the system. Nor is the justification for reform. One sees abolition as plan as the other as a goal. There's something uniquely necessary about multiplicity attacks. Black liberation employed very means critics intend if actors radical they would now reform this piece supposed to reform is the end of itself rather than a means to the end. Historical context, slavery, peace, the ability to unlearn requires a move away from the status quo. Activists make political decision rebuking Eurocentric ideals that dictated preferred action confirms to this politics and respectability, casting anyone aside. Not a perfect alignment. Activism is twisted rather than a transformative activity. Rather than critique foundational validity is more productive to explore rationale, multiplicity of strategies, simulate new ways to think about existing black political spaces. This is all collective progress of the movement operating within conventional tags to uphold state power. However, it's not fair to say that these must act in isolation or they will forever perpetuate. There are other ways to simultaneously operate inside and outside conventional means. Mark at means. Now, floating pics are a reason to reject the team. It forces the app to debate against itself and tries to generate artificial offense, which undermines clash and education, all impacted on the framework debate. Permutation to do both if the pick is possible proves that the action of the app isn't inconsistent with the case theorization, and we actively disavow their K of therapeutic recourse. We are careful consideration of the way technologies of violence overlap. It actively disavows tokenization or a redemption narrative by positioning Palestinian struggle as not as an anti-Zionist hermeneutic that does not exceptionalize itself but opens up connective tissue between sovereign agents and laborers in the possibility of free Palestine. Bailey in 15, the Israeli training is not what makes police oppress black people. The afterlife slavery ensures that police enact anti-black violence. This motivates Palestinians. Their supporters fight anti-black racism concurrently. The Palestinian contingent show respect for specificities of anti-black racism while forging alliances between overlapping struggles focused on the culture emerging from Ferguson. These represent careful consideration of pitfalls, maybe the tokenization of black activism. We recognize none of us is free until all of us are free. Palestine has always been defend a gender decipher, articulating anti-racist and anti-colonial politics, present developments in Palestinian solidarity, representing explicit focus on it, anti-black state violence, making calls for de-exceptionalizing Palestine and resituating in the context of anti-imperialist movements worldwide. We must develop a practice of speech sharing. Now, the Wilderson debate cross-applied the framework stuff and cross-applied the jamming dissent. It comes first. It's the only way we can actively flesh out which power structures create different textures of violence via the spread of surveillance technology, which proves that the alternative of complete disorder does not do anything to address the impacts of the F. Permutation do both. Wilderson's critique of black Palestinian solidarity is ahistorical, ineffective at best, and actively reifies colonialism at worst. As Thomas 18, a glaring absence of black radical history effects, critical analysis of anti-black racism, critique of roots of analogy, naturalizes Western liberalism for black radical perspectives. The anti-black racism not among non-black people do not preclude alliance or relate to indoctrinaire rejection of solidarity. Contribution perspectives were not about mobilization of the political accomplishments of the revolution. Solidarities were not construed as a gift for benevolence. Even work was obviously problematic. Forces could be a tactical move advancing black collective self-interest that might disperse any alliance at any given moment without a statement of some total identity. The notion of solidarity has been superficialized and older practical person not taken up. Afro-pessimism assumes Western epistemic frameworks ensconced in colonialism. Pessimism leads grid of Western epistemologies into a category of idiots to render discrete categories. The upshot is conservatives. Wilderson's contrast of blackness with Palestinians are all not combined. They comprehend no blackness in Palestine or among Palestinians, unlike a great tradition of Pan-African discourses powerfully shared by Malcolm X and Sega. Tira would uphold a Burhani, the paragon of black and Palestinian revolution. Palestine has produced multiple black packing formations. Wilderson nationalizes blackness, although it is scarcely interest of black people outside the colonized U.S. colonized mainline. Marked at mainline, and anti-blackness isn't ontological. It's Kelly and 17. I don't recognize that black policy has been structured by white supremacy. What do people do in terms of social formation? Community building may be structured and dominance, not defined by ontological totality, structured by dispossession. Part of the black radical traditions of refusal, even made that human beings can be property, slavery, Jim Crow, and mass incarceration are actually distinct historically specific responses to the weakness of the racial regime. Jim Crow was a response to black democratic upsurge. There's a gap between 1877 and the Reconstruction and the rise of Jim Crow in the 1890s. Mass incarceration upward swing to not a response to the struggles of the 1960s. We end up thinking white supremacy is so powerful we can't do anything when it's the opposite. White supremacy is fragile. The system gives the impression that it's so powerful working overtime to respond to our opposition. Now our coalitions are good. Our neighbor evidence lists a whole bunch of them. Angela's Davis works, Audre Lorde's project, What's Up in Palestine, Gaza, the Muslim ARC, where Donna Austin and Asher Noor, both black women, actively fight at the forefront of legal warriors, etc. Insights anti-war campaign, Black Lives Matter, Robin Spencer's work, Southwest Youth Collaborative in Chicago, Arab Women's Solidarity Movement, the Black Liberation Army, Black Panther Party, all of them actively worked to the freedom of Palestine and labored in their impossibility. Just because those movements have been co-opted on social media by other activists, not the ones fighting the possibility of Palestine, doesn't mean that the app isn't a good idea, which is an example of why these coalitions are good. Second, we don't create new coalitions. It means it's not unique offense for them. We just align with the ones that exist.
So let's start there. It's about aligning ourselves with coalitions that exist now. I want to put this in the context of this Spelunky evidence.
Yeah.
It says that, it requires, the process of unlearning requires activists to move away from the status quo, but you defend status quo activists. I'm wondering what this process of unlearning in order to be empathetic to blackness is part of the plan.
I mean, we think that is actively what is happening in these activist movements.
What
currently.
movements?
The ones I listed.
In terms of like relating to white people.
In terms of
It sounds like black people are doing things and like amidst anti-blackness. I'm wondering what aligning yourself
these coalitions are not with white individuals. They're between Palestinians and black individuals.
Wait, but you just said like Audre Lorde. You said that Angela Davis. These are black
Both of those
people
black women who are actively working with Palestinians, not white people.
Okay.
Like, in the context of the app, that's what we have to defend, right?
So
like, we don't defend coalitions writ large. That's way too big of a burden for us, right?
Yeah, big.
Right, so going on the last line of the 2AC, since you don't create new movements, what's the 1AC's role in current ones, and which movements currently in the status quo ask for the end of the MOU as a decolonial strategy against Israel?
One, we think all of the movements we have listed either call
All
for
the
laboring...
movements, which ones? I don't think you get access to just movements as a vague term.
Again,
That sounds silly.
Audre Lorde's project, What's Up in Palestine, Gaza, the Muslim
Which
ARC,
one of those
that
have
are actively
indicated an
working-
end to the MOU? That's the question.
all of them have argued that we
What
should
card
labor
do
in
you
the
read on that?
impossibility
What
of
card do
Palestine.
you read on that?
The neighbor piece of 1AC?
Yeah.
In the 1AC?
Sure. Even if I spot you that, right? What about it in the context of like surveillance technology? It sounds like we should not support Israel. Post the plan. New question: does the United States still support Israel?
I mean, obviously we don't end
Right,
every
it still
aspect
does.
of their special
So I'm
relationship. We
wondering
would be
in
on
the
top of
context of
that.
those
That would be
movements-
unfair for the negative.
I mean, it's already unfair for the negative. The low ball that you kind of produce for what solvency is.
We never made a large claim of solvency. You have misread and identified what the 1AC defends.
Sure.
On the Kelly evidence that you read on the on pessimism. It indicates that Jim Crow, slavery are separate epochs because there have been some type of contingent material gains made. So let's talk about the 25 years between the end of Reconstruction to Jim Crow. What democratic gains happened during that time?
It talks about the Black Democratic upsurge that was
Right,
able
the
to
same
create
white
things like the
Democrats
Black
that
Congress that
allowed
allows for the
removal
voice of Black
federal chiefs
individuals
from the
to.
South that allowed Jim Crow to take place. How is that a democratic gain?
It resulted in the creation of things like the Black Congress that allows Black voices to be heard in
That
policy
saying
decisions.
that literally
Second, it's
coincided with
less
Jim Crow inauguration.
Again,
how is that
less,
a democratic
the card is
accomplishment?
less about like things are always perfect, but rather if an ontological reading of anti-blackness were true, you would expect a consistent downward decline of rights
How
and
do you
existence.
determine which reforms are bad?
If they,
Is there a space for that?
we have said we have one argument about why the AF is a good idea. You have to disprove why the action the AF takes is a bad idea.
Okay. So, y'all, as we go into prep, I know that it is an impossible task to ask everyone to be totally silent this whole time. But somebody is having a speech, so what I would like folks to do is turn to the people next to you quietly in just a second. There are three things. One is I want you to imagine that you are the 1A. And circle the 2 or 3 things you think on each flow that are definitely going to be there. This is just a predictions game. If you're the 1AR, which argument's definitely there? Wait, hold on. Wait, before you do that, second. These are things we'll do together, so stay with me. So when you kind of speak quietly to people next to you, 1, what are the things that would be in the 1AR? 2, the prediction. What is going to be in the block? What is the block strategy going to be? And finally, if you all have extra time after talking through those things quietly, help each other fill in gaps on the flow if there were things that you missed that somebody else kind of caught. That can be very useful, but please, especially out of respect to the speaker for prepping, please just work quietly with the people near you and work to kind of identify some of the things.
Ice Dream. Jasmine, are you gonna put me?
I sent it out.
Yeah, I'm just parking the car.
All right. Don't know if you guessed it, but it's gonna be the catharsis argument. That's it.
How many people like Catharsis? Raise your hand. Hey, congratulations.
I mean, you had so many options, right?
Hey.
It's actually gonna be a new sheet of paper.
It's gonna not be the
It's
nation
gonna
of
be
paper. I'm so sorry. No, absolutely not.
So no new sheet.
It is going to say. Y'all are petty. Y'all are really petty for that.
Yeah.
They're just giving claps away today.
We're just
I
doing
gotta
it.
clap for the
I'm like, all I
see,
said
we
was
gotta
hi.
clap for the like,
All I said was
They're
hello.
just really.
Okay. like, ooh, 8 minutes. What do with this?
I was doing that during all my speaking skills for this. I was like, oh, why do I have so much time?
It's like, oh, but I don't know how to do it. All right, we're all good?
Yeah.
All right. Starting on frame and counter interpretation, the Ash should defend their metaphysics and episode research model before evaluating field implications. Reasons to prefer are A. Prerequisite debates centered around the effect of implementation are based on specific political theories and ontological orientation to social ordering, so the basis necessarily private. The Ash assumes perfect implementation is guaranteed with solvency, assumes a world without libidinal concepts of genocide and slavery, which their poor evidence would have internal contradictions with this terms. Their clash into because the debates about fiat become less about challenging competition and foreclosing opportunities for differential non-production and shield the half from engaging in that debate. Now B is fairness. The Ash should be held to the burden of defending its metaphysics epistemology, and it is fair because the affirmative would have necessarily have essential things in order to make their claims. It refers form of voyeurism that uses racial energy as the content of pathologized subjects. Now C, real world. The F is private as well as production, the interpretation. Reproduce substantive state that's boxing just without grappling with the fact that there's not a direct relation to fiat and change and real world dialogue. Most of us all become policymakers, but we will explore and produce certain logical presumptions in the world. They lead to a bad training model because in a vacuum, because we have the one I see in a vacuum will be effectuated without grounding. His theories and the role implications, the impact is cognitive dissonance. Now the ontology, we don't need one to win. The whole choice, the offense on the pessimism's lower, turn at the F on ontology. We win at the risk that plan requires an ontological commitment to the hope and sentient political structure. To see that you should have to load fashion for the examples of contingency because one, then as a result of the plan of this internal links, without a link argument, which is a horrible model for that because the F gets to be a moving target and solvency based on not the plan. Now two is the F's ontological premise is bad and you should only evaluate the plan on the link internal link level, i.e. the contingent process of the plan, not the hindrance the good of the impact. Three, office does not apply to the pick because the collective catharsis does not rely on theory of social death, but is a critique of the libidinal desires of undergirding the 1AC's so the 1AC's collectors, and now they hold a very low bar for what the affirmative has to win in order to get this ballot. One, you do not relate to a reduction in the kind of conferral status of sovereignty in the context of the United States and Israel. I bet if I asked a question in class in the context of whether or not the United States is a terrorist organization or if Israel is, their response would be, we will not take a defense on that. Is going to embed the ways in which you understand the dispersal of power of the 1AC takes because it only is a confirmation of the ways in which you only the only ways in which you read up the kind of notion of sovereignty, which only allows for further forms of violence. It also means that durable fiat does not take up the 1AC. Now they say what is the affirmative jamming, but I'll do the link framing here. The 2AC goes all in on existing movement self the impact. If we get a reason for why one the opposite of reduction is colonialism, then you can't vote negative presumption because they have set an abysmally low threshold for how much of the violence the plan has to solve, making the role of the negative impossible. And two, any officer would be affirmative use of movements is the bad and liberal desires of blackness is a neg ballot because you should frame the space through the Hartman and Williams evidence which was not responded to at any portion of the 2AC that blackness effective capacity is rendered a consumable good that structures the ethical demand to involve against Palestine. This fleshy capture renders black women to be the position of the unfought and forced to articulate their grief within anti-blackness through political redress that simultaneously negates the self-determination autonomy that is the key for the act of solve. Now, if I win a link argument or any link argument that I win is a reason for why the permutation does not function, but also a reason for why you cannot you cannot capture the pick because one it produces more uniqueness for that. I'll do that work below. Now one is the respectability products like one extend king third the king notate that the asterisk is embedded in the black homophobia because of the call for colonial products and empathetically identify with the effective capacity of black women flesh while disclosing of their humanity from political discourse because of the dissection of bodies being cohered at the moment of exchange. The underpunch of their one evidence concedes that the movements such as #Black Lives Matter are used to mobilize dissent. It comes at the cost of black women and concerns that contextualize their voice. The impact is core interpretability, which outweighs in turns the half because they've conceded that they don't resolve genocidal violence, and we will concede the neighbor sequencing claim that fungibility of blackness is the artifact that is perfected on the transnaturals. With the last part of the they read in the 2AC does more work for us because it means that you know a directional claim that goes the opposite way for why the ways in which that violence is perfected is first through the kind of emetic ways in which blackness is made fungible. Now, the 1AC man and 2AC someone's evidence supercharges the link. It requires the corrective and racial concerns to meet some interest conversions, which throws the blackness encounter with settler institutions into universal ethics that manipulate races and technology of control. This is Modin Harney. 13, planet produces life
have indifference, the policies as well as we plan having something logically wrong with them, the change of conditions that have to be for ground nature, the capital subject, the willingness to be made contingent and to make a contingent all around you in the interest of universality that receives no alternative. And three, the applicant the risk of the jamming just said it does not matter because it's debating the question of how they position black male flesh as a rhetorical device to enable the ethics and anti-colonial effects of the plan. The neg will gets the pick out of the forced exhaustive labor to push black women's labor to colorblind politics, which will solve the entirety of the case under their framework. Number four, the pick is the complete submission to the chaos of black embodiment. Acts moralistic colonialism calls for empathy and evaluation. That puts the labor on black women. That's a bad and indifferent reason to reject the one. See, that's King 19. I acknowledge that I'm a white working on and becoming an aim question. How it feels to acknowledge arousal on the side of black bodies and pain rebellion movement have made your feeling of object for study. This interruptive balance of whiteness and performance of pure anti-racist intent and be part of the white researcher at the university of Iowa, produce scholars interested in producing knowledge for political action and more. Simply the eradication of anti-black racism in the university is trans development and pulls to improve, abstract, post-humanize existing fields. The question, how did I advance or intervene upon our saved black cities, really non-black, and then just ask the question of how black cities have saved them. Being often the defensive moment for the 2AC, the question for why they're talking about Palestinian forms of resistance, but if we are winning the directional claim of their neighbors, it means that they do not have access, they don't have access to Palestinian forms of scholasticism because it first requires the perfecting nature of the United States having a coherent relationship to blackness as well. The plan is perfected. It means that even if they solve that as that form of a perfected solitude to the failure of blackness. Now I'll answer path floating is good. No, link's not floating. I conceded in 1FC crosses that we are fucking floating, but also to the shifting nature of the 1AC justifies the pick because of the question of clash, which we will win on the framing piece. The affirmative should have to defend the relationship between the link and internal, like not the impact, because it means that you're always able to use the intrinsic nature of the impact as being a justification for your reps. No, you should. It does not force you to have to defend the after the F. You don't get it. You will have to defend why the forms that exhaustive exchange are key, which you do on the 2AC. Now the permutation supercharges uniqueness for the link. That kind of move to consume blackness to produce that kind of cathartic gesture to say that we do not create the kind of bad the kind of forms of bad racism that the negatives talking about is exactly the move of the kind of woke ass white people that love to be for everybody, but that kind of move to make blackness be positioned in your kind of white imagination for how you're able to understand the kind of beneficial use of democracy, which their main evidence says is key, which probably means that they do not have a tie for how they're able to challenge or rupture ethics, means that they problematizes the 1AC. Last argument is the I'll do a secondary link argument. Actually, no, let's handle this Angela Davis business. Don't know what this argument gets for you in the context of there being movements in the status quo that are supercharged the 1AC. Angela Davis was in the context of getting her civil rights acknowledgement was taken down by the Israeli acknowledgement of that because of her anti-Semitic claims. Ilhan Omar, the ways in which she critiqued Obama for the ways in which we support Israel are selectivist shows the ways in which when dissent happens, the ways in which black women are weaponized and gridlocked against only produce the kind of cathartic moment for how we can establish more ethical politics, but never putting blackness in the ethical moment in the first place. Which means you should evaluate the 1AC as a plan-based method or which they do not resolve the kind of objects that have blackness to produce the kind of cathartic moment of the act.
So you sat down. I still have it. No, you can sit down. Here, I'll sit down. Now I feel.
Let's have a conversation, Caitlin. 1 second. Okay.
I want to start on the framework debate, or the threshold of the AF means we don't get access to our research project. I guess, why should the AF have to resolve settler colonialism in order for our impacts to matter?
Right, wrong question. I think that you have offered a theory for how settler colonialism kind of emanates itself, and that the internal link that you have kind of set is the way to solve. We can argue as a misdiagnosis.
Wait. I want to ask about that internal link. Why do you think we've set the internal link as resolving settler colonialism
why don't you
rather than
I don't know. I think that the ways in which
we
you
read
kind of
more as a theorization
right.
for why
So
violence occurs.
then, to test whether or not the link and internal link level of the affirmative is able to resolve that absent the impact. Because if we just said genocidal violence bad in the context of the affirmative, that's just like true. It's bad.
Yeah,
but whether or not the affirmative has correctly identified within your own theory to do that is through a reduction in surveillance technologies is up for debate.
Why
but we
do you
don't get
think
to
we
have
said
that
that
when you
that's the
say
only
theodic implications because you get granted the impact.
Right.
Nah.
I guess I want to turn to the pick. So,
Sure.
what exactly are we picking out of? Like, is it that the memorandum of understanding should continue post-AF, or?
I
like,
think that if it's the uniqueness question of that kind of scholasticism being key to kind of create the jamming nature of the affirmative, i.e. the big
Wait,
solvency
the
part.
jamming stuff is not created by the scholasticist. The jamming stuff is the active debate over the 1AC in this.
Sure, then
space,
that also links to
separate.
you because we have arguments to why your model of debate is bad. But back to, I guess, the
Yeah.
scholasticist portion, right, is that the Hucking best evidence indicates that the ways in which black women are already doing the work, which you have conceded, don't understand why, when that is mobilized, it is tactically used
Why should we
against
tell
them
black
and
women
produces
to
the kind of
stop
maiming to
fighting
kill
for
that your
Palestine?
evidence would indicate is bad. You only
So is
understand
the
blacks as an
alternative?
object of study.
Wait. So is the alternative then that we should tell black women to stop? The
No,
work they're
it
doing?
means that the 1AC is either A, not useful, 2, useful in the context of perfecting on top of blackness, or 3, a reason for why you
Why?
don't get
The
access to
1AC is
your
not
like
an act of
internal into
scholasticvism.
impact. I don't know what's
The
confusing.
1AC is not an act of scholasticvism. Scholactivists have said that we should attempt to
Caitlin,
end
do you know how
the
shifty that then becomes? Because when you're able
Why
to
is that
access
shifty?
that,
You
it's
never asked us
shifty.
what we
let's
just
talk. Let's talk about definitions of what shiftiness is, right? You will say that like the activist movements are key to create dissent to show the ways in which surveillance technologies are problematic.
And they're being
I
shut
don't-
down by surveillance
I don't know how the
technologies now. We
plan
remove the
leads to this
surveillance
heightened
technology.
sense of activism that is key to create the kind of ethical rupture that your evidence cites.
Wait. Why do you think we cause an ethical
I
rupture?
don't. That's
Okay,
like the point.
agreed. The 1AC
Your
is not an
evidence-
ethical
no,
rupture.
Caitlin, then what are the 1AC cards that you read in terms, or in the Spolensky card that's about a process of unlearning to promote better forms
I'm
of
curious
activism
why
and
you don't
scholarship?
think that the 1AC in the debate over it is that process of
Did I not just spend time in Crossix saying why that is not the case?
Maybe.
I'm a little confused.
Maybe.
I mean, yes.
It'll be a Wilderson case.
I know. Okay. Man, so many cards in this block.
It's
Most
speedy,
blocks are-
Marquise.
Oh wait, hold on.
Everybody good?
No,
No,
hi
no,
again,
no.
stream.
So loud, 5 minutes, 1 sec. Let me just fix it real quick. Put 'em up. Okay,
All right. Not going for Wilderson, they don't have any unique office on the floor. That isn't resolved by the case debate or the K. Permanent test competition, hold them to the movements, isolating 1AC, not just movements as an abstraction. Key to prevent the after being a movement targeted grounds, their ethics to a specific political program, which is key to prevent bad ethical subject making, ensures clash of fair education. Their Kelly evidence is ahistorical and blocks the role of slavery. The way slavery has an afterlife and is not just a question of linearity, but is a historical moment that is imminent. This double turns their 1AC's prior evidence, their theorization of settler colonialism for a couple of reasons. One, it's the same trick of time design is used to proclaim ownership of Palestinian land by denying the historical significance of place and how that ensures the sustained legitimacy of Israel. And this is double turn to their prior analysis because prior is making critiquing spatial and temporal logic to the way in which we understand state formations, but they lock in a static notion of blackness historically, which shows why they are in bad faith in relationship to blackness. All examples of movements that they have, labor and free Palestine hurts them more than helps them. One, it means that they're a solid movement building now around free Palestine, meaning the plan that best steals that labor from individuals, and being a starting point is literally unethical because your work isn't needed, which means that you ultimately steal their labor, and there's no reason to vote affirmative. You can vote negative on perception because those movements are working now, and they could name one movement that asked for an end to the memorandum, which is not a substantial shift in settler colonial relations, but you can see our panel evidence indicates you, and that's the reason you lose this debate, no new 1AR evidence cross application, because it's literally conceded pale makes the structural claim that political theology undergirds modern political formations. The 1AC is silent on the role Zionism, and by extension Christianity plays into the genocidal realities along Palestinian land and the militarization of black and brown communities in the U.S. The Zionist decree over land is one of religion. It is a symptom of the current religious moment both here in the U.S. and abroad in Israel. This has a couple impacts. One, you don't solve the genocide of Palestinians because that conflict is rooted in Zionism and white supremacy, which you only mask, making it a net reasonable negative end. All your impacts are inevitable as long as we recognize and give authority to the U.S. and Israel, who are proponents of violent theology. And this leads to more instances of settler colonialism, imperial war. Zionism, and Christianity represent the mythology of settler futurity through the Genesis and Revelation. Authority is established through divine right, which justifies endless wars and settlement of indigenous and Arab countries like the Golan Heights and the Sinai Peninsula, or even Iran turns the case and more neoconservative violence domestically leads to anti-black violence and circumvents the plan. The plan will lead to an increase in Zionism, neoconservative insurgency to crack down black and brown folks, furthering intrinsic political isolation, meaning your aggregated sovereignty offenses impact turn as a protection of good democracy, which is near collapse, which is structural uniqueness question. This should magnify the lens through which we understand how different groups will be targeted post-plan. Any risk of backlash post-plan should be their plans should be rejected at the level of meta-ethics, and the 1AC justifies the escalation of violence by Israel by removing the U.S. surveillance capacity, meaning during the next Hamas attack, Israel can claim innocence, which are parallel evidence indicates is a precondition of sacrifice and mass violence, and a violent response to the Hamas attacks is justified due to removal of the strategic surveillance partnerships, which outweighs on scope and magnitude, which the U.S. will and Israel be able to say is justified because we ended a memorandum, which isn't a substantial shift in the capacity for Israel's surveillance in the first place. This is a removal of the performance of innocence, which is rooted in the colonial archetype of the U.S. and Israel as settler nations, which co-opt any form of their politics. This should be operated at the level of performance, which is beside the point of the implementation of the plan. Now let's go to case. The plan has zero inherency and will be circumvented. It's in arcane evidence. Israel is more than capable of surveillance unilaterally. Kane indicates in the 8200s one of the most sophisticated military operations in the world. And the context of surveillance, your terrible recutting just says Boeing owns Israel, Israel surveillance company Narcus, which is interesting, I guess. But Israel has 27 other national security companies that export over to 130 countries surveillance technology. Correlation does not equal dependency, meaning post-plan Israel still surveils and kills Palestinians. Durable fiat doesn't check that because you don't get collapsed to U.S. surveillance state. Only means you get access to the MOU in regards to surveillance, which only establishes rule for minimization of U.S. data, not the targeting of Palestinians. Also, I'm on time. Let's extend the word evidence. Trump go off the plan. This is literally proven through his recognizing Jerusalem as capital of Israel. Shows that he's antagonistic, and we will continue to wrap that up. Post the plan, extend our green law evidence. Turns 100% of after indicates you must recognize Israel and the United States as settler entities, and all their politics and selective cherry picking of organizations shows they have a fidelity to non-violent insurrection. What about the individuals who are resisting terror, Hamas, who use violent insurgency as a form of resistance? There also be a form of respectability politics at the level of movement building, which should be a move to settler innocence. Is a link to the app.
Keeping our volume down to respect the debaters as they are prepping. So you should have been asking the last time opportunity to identify what one or two or three arguments you thought the 1 hour would go for on the flow. This time, I want you to talk quietly to the person next to you. Whisper if you like, you know the difference in your voice, like where it has more tone when you're not whispering. You shouldn't hear any of that. Keep it on the whisper level. But what arguments you think are solvency deficits for the pick, and therefore what case arguments the negative will go for in the 2 and R. So things that you think the 1 hour will argue the pick does not solve, and what case arguments the neg will go for to respond to that.
Yeah.
It's just not good.
Can y'all bring it down just a tad bit, please? Thank you.
Hey, if you have reached the end of those first couple questions, one other thing to ask yourself is now, after having heard the block, those initial things that you circled that you thought for sure would be 1AR things, and now that you've heard the block answers to those things, you feel in the same way. Because oftentimes when I was prepping, I think the most important thing, like Team Skip, is kind of like talking to the 1A while the 2N is prepping. You feel like, here's the things that I think are really important for me to AC. But then you've got to have another little meeting like that after the block. Kind of be like, is the game plan still the same in the 1AR? So, for your purposes, is the game plan still the same in the 1AR after the block, or would you change up after you saw what's in place?
Oh, yeah.
How are all of y'all holding up? Do y'all need me to get you some water or anything?
We made Forsland get us things beforehand.
What's up?
Forsland get us things
Oh,
beforehand.
right on.
Hi, Stream.
Hi, Street. All right. The order will be case, pessimism, then catharsis. There are no cards.
I asked to be sent out because having that's typed out.
You're not sending analytics.
We are sending analytics. We did send it. We did send it.
All right, everyone ready?
I'm not ready. 1 second.
Taste, pessimism, catharsis.
Oh, you did all this stuff.
All right, good. Vote out to end sales of surveillance technology, which is enabling factor of all U.S. Israel surveillance operations which target Palestinians based on a securitized, racialized lens, are impacted distinct from their theorizations of power. The Palestinians are not placed in captivity, nor are they selected to be eliminated. Rather, they are subjected to a process of genocidal maiming, where they aren't killed but held in open-air prisons to be constructed as a security threat to Israel. This proves only the apps analysis can effectively address this particular form of violence, and any theorization that trades off with this actively dooms Palestinians to continue torture. None of their all causes assume the plan, or they are just uniqueness for us. Their keen evidence concludes that the NSA is the foundation for Israel surveillance because we embolden them. Their word card doesn't assume the plans or tricks. The MOU of their card is literally 2 lines, and durable fiat means that he cannot roll. And that we also never said that any of those Hamas movements are bad. So I'm not sure what the rest of the one in our was here to go to the pessimism page. Our Kelly card is not a double turn. Our card just says that blackness isn't ontological and shouldn't be static. Our poor evidence doesn't turn this. It didn't make a lot of sense. We are not silent on Zionism. Like half our cards are about how Zionists weaponize black liberation, and why aligning with Palestine then would be better than that. The rest of the one in our about turns case has no warrants, no evidence. Backlash is inevitable, but that's not a reason not to try. And they've conceded that social media activism and resistance is inevitable, but that is not a reason to vote negative on presumption. It's why the plan is key to make that resistance effective, so it's not endlessly surveilled by Israel, which is all of our surveillance and plan keywords from the one I see go to catharsis. Framework, our interpretation is that the negatives prove that theotic action of the plan is a bad idea. We will half concede their we will defend our metaphysical model, but it doesn't come before the plan because the obvious clash with the plan text. You should weigh the app versus the all based on the scope of solvency. It's not enough to justify a different way of theorizing or a non-unique link. They have to prove that the plan makes the score worse so that they all can solve their own offense. The jamming just has a net benefit, and it outweighs all the most of their linked arguments, debating over legal complexities of global surveillance. Networks does a couple things. One, it exposes the secrecy of these MOUs, which is a prerequisite for any discussion of the movements to be effective. Our main evidence says it's impossible to successfully theorize about Black-Palestinian relations without first exposing and the disaggregated sovereignty that constrains our current debates and movements, which turns all of their arguments about current movements being anti-Black. Second is that it provides a better turtling to confront transnational networks of violence. We only know about the similarities between the IDF and cops of Ferguson because of jamming. Our argument is not that these are the exact same, but rather they are interconnected and the technologies are the same. Any effective resistance requires that we trace those forms of violence through legal instruments to understand how these textures of surveillance pit Black and Palestinian people against each other. Saying that fiat isn't real doesn't get them anything because our framework is about how to weigh arguments and opportunity costs. Yes, the app is small, doesn't mean it's not good. We never claim to evaporate Israel. That's not a link argument. Yes, people have asked to remove surveillance because there's truly a chilling effect on those activist groups, and the plan makes those better. Now, next, the floating pitch. Just because you said it was floating doesn't mean it's not theoretically justified. They haven't specified which parts they would include or exclude, which means you should err if it's a voting issue. You want to peruse the effects of the atmosphere. Good idea, which makes permutation theoretically impossible because we would not be able to use our plan as offense. Why advocating for the all and having impacts of the link solves all the reasons why floating points are good too. It's infinitely regressive, endless amount of things you can potentially pick out of, which makes for shallow education, so we would be able to respond with our best and totally ad hoc responses, which turns all their framework justifications, and especially true given floating picks aren't really clarified until the block. And what are they even picking out of? Independent reason to reject for competitive equity because it alters which arguments enter the debate. There are the only defenses framework, which you've already answered about. The link arguments, all their links are non-unique. We don't create new movements, and social media resistance is somewhat inevitable, which I've done, which I've already done in the other page. Process the one I see proves that not all Black Palestinian solidarities are bad. All the examples that they have listed also examples that are consistent with the app. All of Jasmine's examples from our evidence are just about trolls, which are probably inevitable, and no one can solve those nerds on the internet. Our Thomas card from the Wilderson page, cross-apply it here. It is fuego, and impact turns all these link arguments. The roots of analogy rebuts colonialism because it assumes the forms of imperfect solidarities are irredeemable, even though they have been proven to be revolutionary, and lists tons of different examples, which disproves all their empirical examples. Permutation do both. We can pass the plan since they don't have a link to it, which also refusing non-consensual labor. We don't force Black women to use their energy. All of our examples prove that there are some Black women who find value in those imperfect coalitions. The permutation leaves the option on the table with the pick forecloses those meaningful coalitions, and the pick is worse because it means we couldn't cite those really important Black women who have labored for a free Palestine, like Angela Davis, even in spite of that backlash, right? The aliens going to the evidence. Caitlin also read multiple examples. I don't need to reinvent the wheel, and all Jasmine's responses about Ilhan Omar and Angela Davis experienced backlash only proves the necessity of the app. Our Polinsky evidence also says the perm is the best option because the entire point of the app is that the plan might not be the solution to literally everything, but it's necessary right now. It says Black liberation requires a multiplicity multiplicity of strategies to determine which tactics work, which is why jamming is a net benefit to the permutation. This card implicates all their cases of movements examples because it says that holding these movements to an impossible standard of perfection, holding these to an impossible standard of perfection is bad, that black women can't even meet themselves because it means that no alliance would ever be effective, and they obviously know that.
So, as we go into 2-hour prep, obviously a lot to think through. Some of y'all already had these conversations, that's great. One thing I want to make sure that you do, put yourself in the position of the 2-hour and imagine what sorts of things you're going to be highlighting. And again, this is just a predictions exercise. This is you and the people near you guessing. What do you expect to be the big themes of the 2-hour? And what things do you expect the 2-hour to emphasize? In particular, are there any arguments on the case that you think are like, yep, that's definitely going to be in the 2-hour? And then, vice versa, if you get through with that, a little bit of forward predicting, what do you think the 2-hour will be after the 1-hour? And similarly, we'll revisit after the 2-hour.
Hi, stream.
It's crucial.
Is this a good angle for you? Do you like how you look in this
I
camera?
heard a lot of different
That's gonna be on stream,
angles,
by the way.
a lot that seminar might take. There were a lot of different predictions. Some people are going to be right. So I'm excited.
Some of you will be right, some of you will be wrong. Maybe I'm right, maybe you're wrong.
The judge is always right.
You know, but the order is going to be the catharsis, argument. Then it's going to be the Wilderson, flow, pessimism. And then it's going to be the case page. All right. Is everyone good to go? Cool? Yeah? Awesome? Great. This today comes down to the question of the orientation the F has to the internal links means that the 1AC has both the ways in which they're able to resolve one genocidal violence, but also two, the ways in which they require a kind of effective exchange of black female flesh to export the kind of met claim for whether 1AC is good. It means that either A, you, by the framework analysis that Jasmine just does not answer, just extends a framework block as to why field implications are good without expanding the reasons for why you should get access to your impacts. It does not respond to the reasons for why only our models keep to clash, because you have to challenge the ways in which your theory of settler colonialism can be resolved, the ways in which they remove certain technologies. Absent that, the app becomes a moving target that probably undercuts a lot of their offense on the pick, because the question for the ways in which the F only is mobilized through that kind of identification, but also to the impact to all of these framing arguments is poor fungibility. Where do I kind of grab those moments from the debate? It comes from when Jasmine and Caitlin have these awkward, but when you disserve Angela Davis, or when you disserve Audre Lorde, your use of black women to produce that kind of mimetic moment for why the ethicality of the 1AC is good is bad. It also concede to analysis of the white imagination, but you're able to set the kind of teals of confirmation for what from a black radical liberation is good, which means that you should extend to argument that even if the app solves perfectly, that perfected solvency is through the imperfect nature of the ways in which blackness is made fungible. Williams, it means the ways in which the app is able to have a kind of shifting claim of solvency only comes through a way in which they have to defend their ethical orientation. Now the Credara of the pick, we're not only going to go for the link turn to the reason for why which you obviously the labor. They say, where does that fucking come from? The 1A fucking CU? Read your Huggin Bus. It says the ways in which collective this is a key to challenge the ways in which dissident structure are able to operate. If we win that kind of rhetorical moment of using black as an object study only produces that moment exchange, it means that you one link to the impact, but also takes external reason for why you can vote negative on presumption, because you only perfect and mobilize the movements as they rely on some form of interest convergence. Now also, and kicking the ultra checks their office, because one, I don't hear a voter in the 1AR for why that's that, but also two, it's key internally to crash, we're already winning on the framework flow, which is why to check back the shifting nature of the 1AR and 2AR, and that the cable, which I think was an ironic moment that we all felt after the 1AR was the response to political theology. Nowhere means a few unique claims arguments. One is that democracy is collapsing now, which means that the 1AC only leads to kind of reinvestment in kind of settler ontologies via the U.S. Israeli occupation, which means that the ways in which the settler guild to reclaim authority only happens at the moment of white supremacy, which is not resolved by the affirmative. They only say that our cards talk about it. No, they don't. It only says the ways in which Palestinian violence is bad, but does not ever take the stance as to either one, why the athletes to a non-support of Israel as a sovereign entity that is allowed to genocidally maim Palestinians, but also to least a form of circumvention, because it only operates at the level of objective authority. Now the next argument is case, no case, is that it?
The con evidence that Israel already has surveillance.
No, that's the case page, but
the annexing the Golan Heights.
Oh, right. Sorry, to finish that train of thought. This is particularly bad because the ways in which the United States is able to use it to relatively annex different parts of Arab countries in the context of the Golan Heights to fight against Iran, the ways in which they're able to construct a narrative for why Israeli defense is key. It is only perfected in the world of the Hafraya, which is not the reason for why the act doesn't do a thing, but the things that you do result in more violence. If it's a question for rhetorical artifacts and the ways in which you invest in kind of notions of futurity, there's a conceding Marcus's argument about the ways in which it teleologically reconfirms the kind of futurist politics, which is a double turn to their prior analysis. They do not have access to why their theory A is good or why they are a mobilization about, which is why you can vote negative presumption for why their research model is just bad. Another case, please. The last thing I'm doing is extend the candidates. Where was the answer? I'll wait nowhere because the ways in which surveillance technologies are always operationalized against Palestinians because they have the resources to do that. Their kind of belief that the United States is key only provides the conferral of legitimacy sovereignty that allows for the United States to immortalize themselves, which means that the 1AC is net worse sovereignty, net worse forms of genocide, which you use the rhetorical art of blackness to create the transition that propagates the 1AC that the negative follows. And what? Also, let's go back to that. Well, no, floating pics are pathological black women. If we want to link turn to that argument, there's a reason for why that kind of uniqueness is key to test the ethicality of the 1AC.
Quite a bit to think about. Hey, for those of you all, there were some of you all who said definitely political theology and definitely those of you guys corrected. Congratulations. Given this, was there something you wanted to?
Alright, so given the speech that just happened, I would like you all to consult with at most one person next to you, mostly for volume reasons. Y'all are keeping it quite quiet enough, so now you want to pick one person next to you and consult them. But write the ballot framing argument that you think the 2AR will go for. How will they frame the round and ask you all as the judges to evaluate the 2AR and weigh the academic against it?
Remember, I'm watching while also debating. Some of y'all not flowing this debate. So, like, that's going to be awkward when you have to go back to your labs and talk about the debate, right? So, at least for the moment, flow the 2AR and reconstruct the debate potentially from that. Don't know how you could. You're a better debater than me, but, like, flow. I'm literally, all I have time to do is watch you. I'm done. So, watching all of you at the same time.
That goes for you all too.
You viewers at home, are you flowing? You better be flowing. You better be. Like what?
I'm sure you'll have many more after this. All right, the order will be the AF, the Wilderson political theology thing, catharsis, or framework thing. Framework. A framework.
Wait.
All right, everyone good to begin? Perfect. Voa asked if you thinking ending sales of surveillance technology via foreign military sales to the state of Israel is a good idea is the enabling factor of all U.S.-Israeli joint surveillance operation which target Palestinians based on a securitized and racialized lens. The threshold for thinking that the AF is a good idea is not whether or not we end all of Israel's occupation of Palestinian land and all surveillance or address all settler colonialism. Instead, our impact is simply that Palestinians should not have their resistance shut down due to collaboration between the NSA and ISBU enabled by the memorandum of understanding that enables the transfer of data and tech. The negative is right that this narrows the magnitude of our impact that we get to weigh, but it narrows also what links matter. Remember, the question of this debate is not is the AF the best idea ever for addressing the reasons why Palestinians are held in open-air prisons, but whether or not the AF's action is a good idea for enabling the resistance movements to exist in the first place. Remember, scholarly activism exists, or schoolactivism exists, inevitably so does social media. All of the movements that they critique by being reproduced through a mimetic process of anti-blackness already exist in the scroll. The AF does not make those better or worse, but simply says that they should be able to exist because that labor should have some form of analysis and importance within our academic spheres, which is the reason why the jamming argument becomes devastating for the negative interpretation of this debate, only discussing the reason why these documents are secret and the reason why we are not allowed to talk about them in public political spheres is able to challenge the reason why disaggregated sovereignty allows the Israeli settler state and the U.S. settler state to continue unabated. Only the affirmative is able to solve it. Additionally, this debate is about starting points, which means it's not enough for the negative to win, that they have a better theorization of how the AF's impacts function, which is the threshold set for catharsis business in the 2NR, because they have no alternative to resolve any of their actions, but that proves that the AF's positioning of violence within the broader context of Israel genocidal maiming justified by settler ends actively trades off with their theorization of the KR. Poor and neighbor evidence are very good on the question of Palestine being the generative site of colonialism for all of the West, and that only theorizing violence through this lens can address the particularities of that violence, which is the reason why all of our research projects is an impact turn to the Kane is a net benefit to the permutation that goes conceded. Now, the Kane piece of evidence doesn't answer any of the AF. It wasn't dropped in the 1AR. The reason why Israel has such a dope surveillance setup is because the NSA gives them the technical expertise to create those cyber weapons. I reread their piece of evidence in the 2AC show. That's enough. All the business about creating and bolstering the Israel nation state. How does the AF do that? Where do we say that Israel is a good nation, or where do we actively trade off with insurgents movements? None of that is what the AF does, which proves that it's not mutually exclusive. Now, the political theology business, again, not dropped in the 1AR. Remember when Jazzy says that we are not a Zionist hermeneutic, but we are an anti-Zionist one? That is the answer to the political theology, because we agree that the U.S. and Israel are settler and terrorist nations that are actively naming and causing violence upon Palestinians. Our argument is that we are not responsible for getting rid of those nations in totality, because the AF can't just be like fiat delete Israel or the U.S. or whatever, but it must require that we not necessarily acknowledge the relationship that kind of drives and allows these foundational violences to occur, which is the reason why we address the religious backbone of these arguments. Now, the catharsis page, again, there is no alternative, but there was a permutation, which means if I win a reason why their theorization of violence does not actively trade off with the affirmative, or there's a reason why it does not have to be the active starting point, then you vote affirmative. Now, our framework business, our argument is that you should weigh the theotic implications of the AF insofar as they are important and justified by the epistemological and methodological considerations of research that we have made. All the jamming stuff I did on case is a justification of all those arguments, which answers all the reasons why weighing fiat alone is bad, but it proves whether you should filter them through the lens of how the AF is a good idea. The action we take filters the ways in which we talk about this research. All of the man evidence says that talking about the memorandum of understanding, calling for an active end of it, is necessary to get rid of the shutting down of discussions like Angela Davis talking about the Palestinian movement. The reason Ilhan Omar got so much backlash in the political sphere is because there is a move towards the Zionist hermeneutic to justify anti-blackness on a large scale, which is able to solve. Second, our coalition's argument, we don't have to win that black women-led our arguments are the only movements that we support, just simply that they exist, and it proves that there's no trade-off with the negatives theory theorization of how violence works. We're not a catharsis or move to innocence, but rather we are a recognition that labor is important and should not be silenced on a broader scale. The alternative agrees with silencing being good because it actively says that we should not position that labor as being something important in academic spaces. Our Bailey evidence impact turns this because it indicates that Bailey and Spolitsky evidence, because it does say that all reformism may be parasitic on some level, but it is necessary to address the structures of violence that enable them to continue. Otherwise, they continue unabated, and no one ever addresses, which is the same conservative turn and move that Trump does when he attempts to shut down things like the discussion of Israeli surveillance on a large scale. They kick the alternative, which means they have no way to solve any of these moves to catharsis in the status quo, which means all the uniqueness stuff about this social media stuff happening, but via trolls and in the status quo proves that the app does not actively make it worse, which means it's not a dissad to voting affirmative.
I put 6 minutes.
Bye, stream.